So recently there have been a rare leak containing information about a bunch of new items and item changes that might be coming to Dota 2 in the upcoming patch along with the release of the new Hero MUERTA. And since I found a lot of info about the items from this rare leak, I had to split up the things that I found into two separate videos. So if you guys want to know about all of these new items, make sure to check out both of these videos, links in the description. And this is part 2 of those videos where I'm going to go through this rare leak and talk about these item changes and try to speculate about what these new items might be like. So without further ado, let's begin. So starting where we left off, the next new item mentioned in this data leak is called the LUNAR CREST, and the fact that this item has the word crest in its name just like the solar crest item we have in game, and the fact that Luna means moon and solar means sun, makes it very obvious that these two items are going to be inverse counterparts of each other. I mean, they also have similar prices, so it's pretty clear what's going on here. And I think I know exactly what this item might be like, because a while back I actually came up with a similar item idea myself. Let me explain. So some of you might know that I enjoy coming up with ideas for Dota 2 during my free time, and like I explained in one of my community posts, I was planning to release videos talking about the item and hero concepts I made over the years, and one of the items I wanted to make a video about is an item that I created called the Lunar Emblem, which was also meant to be an inverse counterpart of the Solar Crest item, just like the Lunar Crest item that is mentioned in this daily. And since both of these items seem to have been created with the same intention in mind, I have a really strong feeling that this upcoming Lunar Crest item might turn out to be very similar to the Lunar Emblem item that I created, which means now is the best time to talk about my Lunar Emblem item before this Lunar Crest item is released into the game, so that this way I won't be labeled as a liar when I talk about this item concept. But since the main topic of this video is about the items mentioned in this data leak and not the items that I created for fun, I'm only going to briefly talk about my Lunar Emblem item, just enough to explain what I think this Lunar Crest item will be like, because otherwise this video will go way off topic and will end up as a really long video. But anyways, the basic idea behind my Lunar Emblem item was that since it was made to be an inverse counterpart of the Solar Crest, which had an active that enabled auto attack type heroes, my Lunar Emblem item was created to enable spellcasters instead. And together both of these items were meant to represent Mirana's conversion from the Princess of the Sun in the Helio Imperium to the Priestess of the Moon serving Selemene like mentioned in her lore. And since I wanted the Lunar Emblem to be an artifact that is blessed by the Moon Goddess Selemene, I made this item an upgraded form of the Glimmer Cape so that the Lunar Emblem can also have the Glimmer active. And I did this because the Glimmer active is very similar to Mirana's Moonlight Shadow ability, which according to this ability's lore is said to be an ability that Mirana gained from Selemene. So basically the reason why I made my Lunar Emblem item an upgraded form of the Glimmer Cape is because then it can inherit the Glimmer active, which acts a lot like Mirana's Moonlight Shadow ability. So this was my way of connecting the origins of this artifact's power directly back to the blessings of Selemene, the Moon Goddess. And since this item's counterpart, the Solar Crest, can be cast on both allies and enemies, I decided to give the Lunar Emblem the ability to cast the Glimmer active on enemies, so that it can apply an inverse Glimmer effect which reduced their magic resistance and prevented enemies from going invisible by revealing them. And that was the basic idea behind my Lunar Emblem item, and there are many other intricate details that went into creating this item. And because of this reason, I'm thinking of releasing a follow-up video talking all about the thoughts that went into creating this item. So when I do release that video, I will leave the link for that video in the description box below so that you guys can check it out if you guys are interested. But anyways, like I said before, I expect the Lunar Crest item that is mentioned in this data leak to be very similar to my Lunar Emblem item that I just talked about. So basically I expect this upcoming Lunar Crest item to be an inverse counterpart of the Solar Crest that enables spellcasters instead of auto attack type heroes, and it will be an upgraded form of the Glimmer Cape that will have the added benefit of unlocking the ability to cast the inverse version of the Glimmer Cape's active on enemies to reveal them and reduce their magic resistance. And lore-wise, this item's power will be connected to Selemene, the Moon Goddess, and together with its inverse counterpart, the Solar Crest, these two items will represent Mirana's conversion from the Princess of the Sun to the Priestess of the Moon. So if all of these things turn out to be true for the Solar Crest item, it means that the Lunar Crest item that is going to be released into Dota 2 will be near identical to the Lunar Emblem item that I created in terms of lore, function and overall build-up. But although all of these things seem to fall into place, unfortunately I noticed that the build-up sort of presents a problem, because this was the build-up for my Lunar Emblem item, and the total price of this Lunar Crest item is said to be 2600 gold, and it is said to have a 600 gold recipe. And this data leak also mentions the price drop of the Glimmer Cape item, and when we factor in all of these things, it leaves us with only 125 gold, which is not enough for a win list to fit into the Lunar Crest build-up like it does in the Lunar Emblem's build-up. So maybe I might be wrong about the build-up, but it's worth noting that in the previous part of this video, we did find out that there are some prices mentioned in this data leak that seems to be a bit off. So there is a chance that the recipe cost of this item is wrong, or there's a potential price drop of the Windlace item that is simply not mentioned in this data leak, similar to that potential price drop of the Shadow Amulet that I talked about in the previous video. But anyways, if this item does end up like I speculated in this video, it would be a perfect execution of an Invis reveal item, because we have Gem and Dust which both provides the AoE Invis reveal, but they both have a couple of downsides like dropping upon death and using up an inventory slot that could be used by another better item. So with the introduction of this item, it will kinda solve both of these problems, but will not end up being overpowered at the same time, because it only affects a single target and the debuff itself should be applied before the unit goes invisible to actually reveal them. Plus the fact that this item is relatively more expensive than these two other options makes the LUNAR CREST an overall balanced invis reveal item. And the last piece of evidence that supports the idea that the LUNAR CREST will have an active that reveals invisible units comes from the fact that Valve have actually been tinkering around with the idea for an invis reveal item for a while now, because a while back there was an unreleased item called the Eagle's Eye that had an active that revealed enemies in the AoE, and I actually made a whole video talking about the Eagle's Eye item and all of the other items that got leaked along with it. So if you guys want, you can check out that video, links in the description. But anyways, like I said in that video, that unreleased Eagle's Eye item had a really bad build up, and probably because of this reason, Icerock apparently seems to have scrapped this Eagle's Eye item, because later on the Gem of True Sight got an active that is clearly the Eagle's Eye active with a couple of minor changes. And since the Gem of True Sight now has the AoE invis reveal ability of the Eagle's Eye, Icerock must have thought that it's just better to create an entirely new item with a single target invis reveal active instead, which I think ended up being this LUNAR CREST item that we have here. But with all of that aside, the next new item mentioned in this tier leak is the Witch's Switch item, which I think is going to be an item that is going to build into the Witch Blade, because it has a similar name and a lower gold cost of 1900 gold. And I was actually expecting the Witch Blade to receive a build up rework for a long time now, because ever since this item was introduced into the game, I was really confused because it didn't include a Orb of Venom in its build up to explain the Witch Blade proc that this item has, because just like the Orb of Venom, it deals damage over time and slows enemies, and they literally say that it applies a poison on the enemy, so it's pretty clear that this item should include a Orb of Venom in its build up. So I think they are introducing this Witch's Switch item to bridge that gap, and this actually seems to be the case, because when you deduct this item's total gold cost from the recipe cost mentioned here, it leaves us with 1275 gold for its other components. And because of the reasons I just talked about, I think one of the components will be a Orb of Venom, so that when the Witch's Switch builds into the Witch Blade, it would explain the damage over time proc that the Witch Blade has. And then we have the other component, which I think is going to be a Blitznakers, because that is one of the components in the Witch Blade's current build up, and together they perfectly add up to the total gold cost of the Witch's Switch item. So I think this item will probably have a weaker version of the Witch's Blade proc, which will deal a fixed amount of damage over time, and then when it builds into a Witch Blade, it reworks its current build up to include a Witch's Switch, a Robe of Magi, and maybe even a recipe to match its current total gold cost, and it will use the int provided by the Robe of Magi shown here to improve the Witch's Switch proc into dealing damage over time based on the user's intelligence, just like the current version of the Witch Blade proc. And while they are reworking this item's build up, I think they should use this opportunity to replace the Robe of Magi with a crown, and make the passive proc deal damage over time based on the user's primary attribute and not based on just intelligence alone, because this way even strength and agility heroes can potentially benefit from this item as well. And speaking of the possibility that the Witch Blade might get a build up rework, changing it from an int based item to a multi-attribute item, I gotta say that I was actually expecting the Revenant's Brooch that builds from a Witch Blade to also get a build up rework that will change it from an int based item to a multi-attribute item, or more likely a agility based item. But sadly I don't really have the time to go into the details to explain why I say this is the case. But the main gist is that in the previous videos I made about this upcoming Hero MUERTA, we did find out that she is actually wearing the Revenant's Brooch around her neck, and therefore she is closely connected to this item. And we also found out that MUERTA is a Veiled Sister Assassin just like Mordred and Spectre we have in game. And because of this reason, I also expect MUERTA to be a agility carry hero just like these two other Veiled Sister Assassin heroes. And all of these factors together with a bunch of other reasons that I found led me to the conclusion that the Revenant's Brooch might receive a build up rework that will change it from an int based item to an agility based item to match with the fact that the hero that is connected to this item seems to be an agility hero. And I was originally going to make a video talking all about why I think the Revenant's Brooch might get reworked like this, but unfortunately I ran out of time. And one of the things that I was going to discuss in that video was the fact that I think that this necklace that you see in MUERTA's reveal trailer might actually be teasing a new item, because if you look closely, you can see that this necklace have golden skulls that looks a lot like the skull in the Revenant's Brooch, and therefore I even nicknamed this necklace as the Revenant's Necklace, and I expected this Revenant's Necklace to replace the Witch Blade from the Revenant's Brooch's current build-up and trigger the Revenant's Brooch rework that I mentioned a while ago. But based on the things that we speculated about the Witch's Switch item in this video, there is a good chance that this Revenant's Necklace might actually be the Witch's Switch item that is mentioned in this tier leak. I mean, now that I think about it, it does kinda look like a witchcraft related necklace. So let's wait and see if the Witch's Switch item will actually turn out to be the necklace that was teased in MUERTA's reveal trailer. And by the way, on a side note, there is a chance that this Witch's Switch item might replace the Dragon Lance in the Harpoon items build-up that I talked about in the previous part of this video, because both of them have the same gold cost, and like I speculated in this video, both the Harpoon and the Witch's Switch item both seem to have a cooldown based proc that modifies your attack, so they do kind of fit. But personally, I think the Dragon Lance suits the Harpoon build-up way better, because like I said before, both the Dragon Lance and the Harpoon items increases attack range, and they both seems to be exclusively ranged items. So as you can see, both of these items do have their own reasons to why they might build into this Harpoon item. So I guess only time will tell what will really happen to these items when they are released into the game. But anyways, the next new item in this tier leak is called the Phylactery, which is a magical artifact introduced in Dungeons and Dragons, and it is said to be a necromantic object that is used to trap or store souls of monsters. And there's also a different variation of the Phylactery called the Lich Phylactery, which is used to preserve parts of your soul as a way to prevent yourself from dying. Because even if you end up dying, as long as the Lich Phylactery isn't destroyed, you can come back to life by using the soul fragment that you have stored inside of it. And yes, the Horcruxes that Voldemort uses in Harry Potter is actually a form of Lich Phylactery. But anyways, although these two variations of the Phylactery are different in their own way, I noticed that the descriptions of both forms of the Phylactery that I just mentioned sounds awfully similar to the lore of the Urn of Shadows and the Spirit Vessel, and their function in game of storing souls of dead heroes in the form of soul chargers. I mean, if you look at the D&D's depiction of the Phylactery, it does look like it could be an upgraded version of the Urn of Shadows. So this item could be an alternate upgraded form for Urn of Shadows, just like Spirit Vessel. But unfortunately, the build-up sort of presents a problem, because Urn of Shadows have this awkward gold cost with a 80 on its end as a result of the circlet in its build-up, and this 80 gold also sticks out like a sore thumb in its upgraded form, the Spirit Vessel, as well. Meaning if the Phylactery item is an Urn upgrade, its total price or the recipe price mentioned in this tier leak should have indications of price adjustments to accommodate this 80 gold, but it doesn't. So even if we ignore this fact and try to incorporate a Urn in the Phylactery item's build-up, the awkward price of Urn of Shadows still makes it practically impossible to create a proper build-up for this item when we factor in the total and the recipe prices of the Phylactery item mentioned in this tier leak. So all of this means that the Phylactery might not be an Urn upgrade after all. And after some brainstorming, I remembered that in a previous tier leak, there was an unreleased tier 5 neutral item called the Bottomless Chalice, which was an item that functioned very similar to a bottle. Because just like bottle, this item had the ability to collect runes, and it also had charges that you could use to restore your health and mana. But instead of 3 max charges, this item started with 6 max charges, and it had the ability to refill its charges every 10 seconds by itself. So yeah, if this item wasn't a neutral item, it would have definitely been a bottle upgrade. And what's interesting about this item is that it actually gained additional max charges with every hero kill. And although this sounds a lot like how Urn of Shadows functions, there's one detail that makes these traits fit the concept of the Phylactery artifact way better. Let me explain. You see, Urn's active can be used both defensively and offensively, while the Bottomless Chalice item's active can only be used defensively. And this lines up perfectly with the fact that the Phylactery artifact is all about collecting souls and preserving your own life, meaning it was an artifact that was only used for defensive purposes, unlike Urn of Shadows. So all of these factors points towards the possibility that the Phylactery item will be a bottle upgrade that will function very similar to this Bottomless Chalice item, which it seems to be an improved iteration of. But in addition to all of that, I think the Phylactery item will play around with the concept of trapping souls of units that you kill and then convert the power of the souls that you have stored to preserve your life or outright bring you back to life somehow, because that is the ultimate power and use of the Phylactery. So maybe this item might act like the old Bloodstone that we had, which reduced your hero's respawn time based on the charges you have stored. But since the Lich Phylactery is supposed to bring you back to life and not bring you back to life faster, another alternate way it can work is that it might act more like the removed Helm of the Undying neutral item, which had the ability to bring you back to life in wraith form whenever you died, essentially acting as a mini Aegis of sorts. And since we already established that the Phylactery is a charge-based item, I think the amount of extra seconds that you can stay alive in this wraith form will probably be determined by the number of soul charges that you have stored in this item. So the Phylactery might have either one of these abilities that increases in power based on the soul charges you have stored. And just like how the old Bloodstone lost its charges when you die, I also expect this Phylactery item to also lose soul charges upon death as well. But since this item is a bottle upgrade and a bottle is basically useless if it had 0 charges, I think this item must have a rule that prevents the number of charges of this item from ever going below 3 max charges, because that is the number of charges that a regular bottle has. So basically this way the Phylactery won't end up being useless than its unupgraded form, the bottle. So yeah, that is what I think the Phylactery item might be like. And although the respawn time reduction and the few extra seconds in wraith form are viable options to what the Phylactery item might do in game, I personally find it a bit too bland. And therefore while I was making this video, I came up with a concept to make this Phylactery item a bit more exciting. However, I decided not to talk about my version of the Phylactery item in this video, simply because it requires a lot of explaining, meaning it will end up making this video longer, and it will also take us away from the main topic of this video, which are the items mentioned in this tier leak. But since I have a feeling that the Phylactery item might act similar to the concept I made for this item, I'm just gonna drop a hint in this video so that I can later prove that I already knew about how this item would function before it was actually released into the game. And the hint is 3 Phoenix concepts, and I will try to release a video talking all about my version of the Phylactery item concept, and in that video I will explain what this hint really means. And when I do release that video, I will leave the link for that video video in the description box below so that you can check it out if you guys are interested. But with all of that aside, now let's talk about this item's build up. So since the Phylactery seems to be a bottle upgrade, I'm gonna factor in the price of the bottle with the recipe and the total price of this item mentioned in this tier league. And this leaves us with 1825 gold for its other components or component. And a Vanguard is a possible candidate for this missing item, because Vanguard's price is also 1825 gold, and the HP regen, bonus health and the damage block that it provides lines up nicely with the fact that the Phylactery is a magical artifact that is all about protecting the soul or the life of its user. However, since bottle is often bought by mid-heroes who fall into the squishy spellcaster category, I think a better alternative for the Vanguard would be a vitality booster plus a void stone, which together also cost this same total amount. And the reason why I say that this is better is because the mana regen provided by the void stone would be great on mid-heroes who often cast a lot of spells, while the health provided by the vitality booster will make these otherwise squishy mid-heroes harder to kill, which again lines up with the Phylactery's theme of protecting your life. Plus the fact that these two items are connected to health and mana also complements the bottle active, which also restores both of these things. So yeah, I think this is how the Phylactery item will function. And looking at this item's build up and abilities, I'm pretty sure that mid-heroes who buy bottle like Storm Spirit would absolutely love this item, because this item potentially has the power to provide this user with infinite regen with each kill that they get, and this combined with this item's possible ability to reduce respawn time or outright keep you alive for a few extra seconds after death means that the Phylactery item is essentially made to enable mid-heroes to set the tempo of the game and keep on snowballing if they manage to get a head start. So all in all, if the Phylactery item is gonna function just like I speculated in this video, we can expect this item to quickly become a very common purchase on almost every mid-hero when this item is released into the game. And what's interesting is that this item seems to have been teased in Muerta's reveal trailer, because here you can see an object that kinda looks like the depiction of the Phylactery from D&D. So there is a chance that this object is actually the Phylactery item mentioned in this tier league. And this combined with the fact that I believe this necklace might be the Witcher Switch item that I talked about earlier makes me think that these items will be released along with Muerta in the upcoming patch. And like I proved in one of my previous videos, this is the Book of the Dead, and the fact that this item is shown alongside these two items could mean one of these two things. One is that it could be a sign that the Book of the Dead will be converted from a neutral item to a purchasable item, or it could also be a sign that the Necronomicon item that acts a lot like the Book of the Dead might make a return in this upcoming patch, which to be honest would be really cool. And this kinda does make sense if you think about it, because all of these items that I just mentioned does fit in with the theme that Muerta is a ghostly hero. However, since all of this is just speculation at this point, I guess only time will tell if all of these things will actually happen or not. And speaking of items making a return, the last two entries mentioned in this tier league is the Iron Talon and the Ironwood Tree, which are both items that once existed in the game before they were removed from the game a while back, so I guess they are returning to the game again. And I noticed that they both have odd price changes from 301 to 0 and 151 to 0 respectively, which seems to suggest that they might return as neutral items. But there's also a chance that they might return as purchasable items instead, because both of these items did have build-ups the last time they existed in the game. But regardless of the case, the return of the Iron Talon is really interesting, because Iceberg really seems to like this item, as he keeps on trying to bring it back only to remove it from the game time and time again. So let's hope that this time around, the Iron Talon will be here to stay. And that concludes all of the things that was mentioned in this tier league. And looking at all of these new items, I think we can expect ranged heroes to become really powerful if these items do end up getting released in the upcoming update, because the Harpoon item is literally an exclusively ranged item, and the increased movement speed and the flying movement provided by the Hermes channels would be a great way to kite melee heroes. However, there are rumors of an item change that might help the melee heroes level the playing field. You see, there are some sources which claim that the Quelling blade will receive a rework that will allow you to cast this item's active on enemy units and deal your attack damage to them from like a 600 unit cast range. So basically it's gonna act a lot like Phantom Assassin's Stifling Dagger, and theoretically this change would help melee heroes to secure last hits way more easily in the laning stage. And this change is really interesting, because this was actually an ability that the Hon version of the Quelling blade had, meaning this could be another sign of the Great Confluence slowly porting over features from Hon into Dota 2. But although this change would be really cool, I gotta say that I'm not 100% sure if this Quelling blade change will actually happen, simply because this Quelling blade change is more of a rumor than an actual thing that was mentioned in this tier league. And speaking of which, I want to clear up something important. You see, I have seen that there are many other sources covering the topic of this item tier league. However, they often showcase more items that were supposedly leaked from this tier league, like this global cast range blink item called the Dimensional Doorway. And although items like the Dimensional Doorway are real leaked items, they are actually items that was leaked in previous item tier leagues, and not really this particular tier league that we are talking about now. So basically, there seems to have been a mix-up with the information. I mean, even I talked about a couple of these items from previous tier leagues while I was exploring this tier league. And as far as I know, the following things that I discussed are the only things that was mentioned in this particular tier league. So I really hope this clears up the confusion. But speaking of previous item tier leagues, since a handful of the items that we discussed in this video seems to be improved items iterations of unreleased items from previous item data leaks, there is a good chance that some of those older item concepts might get repurposed and will eventually be released in Dota 2 in one form or another in the future. So I think it's a good idea to revisit some of those older data leaks and cover them just like I did with this data leak. So make sure to like this video and let me know if you guys would like me to make more videos just like this where I will cover those previous data leaks. But anyways, that's it for this video guys. If you guys like this video, don't forget to like, share and subscribe and turn on notifications for more videos like this, and comment down below and let me know what you guys think about the new items mentioned in this data leak, because I would really like to know what you guys think. And since this is a two-part video series, make sure to check out the other part of this video series if you want to know about all of the new items and item changes that was mentioned in this data leak. And I will leave the link for that video and all of the other related videos to this video in the description box below so that you guys can check them out if you like. And with that said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next video.